Welcome back. Again, I'm Speed at the bottom of the helix. Our next clinic is all about remote operations. Yes, that's where you're far away and you're doing some real model train stuff somewhere else. So, one of our presenters have been modeling in 2 rail O scale for about 30 years, the first 7 in England and the most recent 23 in Canada. His main focus on the GHR, he might tell the story of the history of the name, is modern shortline switching operations. His partner in crime is a technologist by day and a model railroader by night. He enjoys creating control systems and video systems for modeling in the railroad community. We welcome Pete Mulvany from Waterloo, Ontario, and Tom Chalabi from Fort Worth, Texas.
Hi everyone, thanks Speed, and thanks for the opportunity to present what we've been doing. So today we're going to take a brief look at how we've leveraged some miniature camera technology from Choo Choo Vision to enable a compelling user experience for remote engineers and conductors on our layout. I'm going to start with a couple of video clips or segments that will take you through what we've been doing, and then we'll segue into the Q&A breakout room afterwards. Thanks very much. Hello, I'm Pete Mulvany. I'm located in Southern Ontario. And firstly, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present today. I'm going to talk a little bit about my interest in the hobby, which is modern era shortline industrial switching, so last mile, and how we transitioned our sort of conventional operating sessions into operating with remote crews under the constraints of COVID. I model in 2 rail O scale. I have a freelance modern era shortline, loosely based on what I see around me here in Southern Ontario, which is OSR and GEXR. And the main focus of mine and of my crews is on the interactions between the crew members, engineer, conductor, and sometimes brakeman, in order to get the work done accurately and safely. So definitely a bit of a niche in the hobby, but one that I enjoy, and I hope that you will find what we're doing to be of interest. Technically, my layout's pretty much the same as any kind of modern era DCC setup. As you can see, protothrottle, log sound decoders, JMRI, and I use ShipIt to generate the car traffic and its output to switch lists. So in the pre-COVID world, typically I'd operate about once a month. Up to 6 people, 3 2-person crews could operate together, and we'd run for about 4 hours. Total of about 8 jobs, 6 locals and 2 interchange trains at the end of each session. So on the basis of once a month for 4 hours, my annual operating time was probably about 50 hours per year. So in an in-person operating session, the layout's divided into separate aisles with 8 foot high to the top of the backdrop, so you can feel somewhat isolated in the place that you're operating, but still it's easy to cheat as an engineer or conductor when the train gets short, because you can both see what the other person's doing in the crew, making the communication less of a dependency to get the work done.
2 cars, 1.
So once COVID hit, we really wanted to find a way to maintain our operations, but obviously I could be the only person in the room, so we needed to figure out how to get the remote engineer, remote conductor, or both roles to be remote, and I would do the rest of the work needed here in the room. So we've used technology, cameras in particular, to help us get to that model, and I'll take you through the steps that we've done to achieve that. And I now can say that I've never operated so much in my life, and over the COVID period, we've run more than 250 hours of operations with conductors and engineers from UK, Australia, and North America. Okay, so I'll walk you through the steps that we took on our way to creating a more immersive and compelling remote crew experience. We started off just with a simple Zoom call on a phone on a small tripod, as you can see, which provides a great view for the on-the-ground work and close-up work of the conductor. Not so good for the remote engineer, as he doesn't really get to see much of his end of the train most of the time, but still workable, and we had quite a lot of fun with it, but we just knew that we could do better. So to take it to the next level, we added some overhead cameras, low-cost Wi-Fi IP streaming security cameras fit the bill, and we ended up with a pretty decent coverage of the layout end to end, which certainly helped everybody to understand where they were in relation to each other and the equipment and getting the work done in a more accurate way. But really what we've done is create a better replica of the experience of standing in a layout room operating a layout. What we're actually trying to do is get the remote users, conductor, engineer, brakeman, immersed into the scene so they have proper at-scale views as if they were doing the work in the real world. So to get to that immersive view level, clearly a smaller camera system was going to be needed, and I was fortunate to meet Tom Chalabi from Choo Choo Vision a few months ago at some point online, and we started to talk about what my needs were and what he was putting into his product range. And so in the next couple of slides, I'll take you through how I started to use his excellent products to really create a much more immersive and realistic at-scale view for my remote crews. All right, let's take a look at the remote engineer's experience using Choo Choo Vision cameras. In this case, forward, side and rear views from the cab of the lead unit in a 2-unit consist. And he's going to be backing into pull a car from an industry spot, communicating with the local conductor via the Zello app on his phone. All right, crossing is protected. Back up 5 cars to the joint.
Back 5 to a joint. Three. Two.
One. 20, 10, 5, and good. 3 points.
3 point set.
Now let's take a look at the remote conductor's view of the same move. In this case, we're going to be using the Choo Choo Vision panning camera to create the riding on the car view, and then later on the ground view. So I'll run the clip and then I'll show you how we do that. All right, 56, arm up. Crossing is protected. Come on, back 6, please.
Back 6.
Three more.
3.
2 more, 56.
2.
1 more.
1 more.
And that'll do. All right, 56, come on back 1 car to the joint.
Back 1 to a joint.
Half a car. 20, 10, 5, and good. 3 point.
3 point set.
All right, 56, just take it ahead 1.
Ahead 1.
And that'll do. All right, 56. I'm up ahead 6.
Ahead 6.
Three more.
3,
2 more.
2,
1 more.
1.
And that'll do. So how we do that in O scale is we have the Choo Choo Vision camera mounted on an external USB-C phone power pack battery that you see there, which is riding on top of the cars. We just move it between cars, held on with a little bit of blue putty or sometimes silicone gel phone mounting material. And then we have the 8-inch lens, and the servo here is actually providing the panning action. All of that's controlled through the browser interface, and everything's powered off connections to the camera. So the way that we delivered that panning view that you saw once the conductor's riding on the car is done by that browser interface, and you can see the movement here. So you can pan left and right fully, center it, or move in small increments depending on what he needs to see. So Tom's going to talk more about this in his segment, but he now has a servo that's a quarter of this size. So I think this is highly doable in HO as well as in O scale. So I hope you enjoyed that walkthrough of our progression towards a better remote crew operating experience. And in closing, I'd just like to give you an update on what's coming next on the GHR. I'll start with a big thanks to Tom Chalabi at Choo Choo Vision. You know, we've asked him for quite a few different features along the way as this has progressed, and he's always come through and exceeded our expectations. So much so that the GHR management has signed off on Choo Choo Vision now, so we're in a position to start installing individual panning cams in each of our roster cabs. That'll give the remote engineers the opportunity to be able to pan their own view, same as the conductor does. And I'll close in giving you a glimpse of what that's going to look like. And once again, my thanks to Tom, and you'll be hearing more from him shortly.
Hello, and welcome to an overview of the Choo Choo Vision Model Railroad Video Camera System. Model railroaders have built amazing worlds. Their layouts are to scale, buildings and bridges and roads and trees and mountains. Their trains are at scale, all the engines and cars and cabooses. The one thing that's not at scale is us, the operator. And that's where Choo Choo Vision fills the need. It helps us be at scale. It's virtual reality for model railroading, an immersive and realistic experience. So what is Choo Choo Vision? At its heart, Choo Choo Vision is a video camera that also allows you to take photos. But it's much more than that. It's an operator's camera that allows you to sit in the cab of your engine or trackside or be a conductor and be at scale inside your layout. Choo Choo Vision also allows you to stream your video over the internet, so you don't physically have to be in the room with your layout. You can be located anywhere in the world and run a locomotive halfway across the globe. It live streams over the internet, and a typical delay is about a second and a half. So Choo Choo Vision was designed for model railroading, but it was designed by model railroaders. So all the wants and needs for the features and functionality of the system were considered and derived by model railroaders to create an immersive and realistic experience. For instance, the form factor. How small could we make the camera so it will fit inside our locomotives? Custom designed lenses, and of course power systems that enable us to run the cameras off of DCC track power and have a battery that functions as a keep alive. And certainly the pan cam, which allows us to move a lens left to right and get a full panoramic view of our layout. Let's take a look at what an engineer would see using the Choo Choo Vision. You can see the engine in front of you, the handrails, the tank car that we just passed, an immersive and realistic experience. And all of this is brought to you over the web in near real time. Choo Choo Vision products include trackside cameras, which can be placed anywhere on the layout, cab cams, which you just saw, which can be placed in or on engines, the pan cam accessory, which allows you to get a panoramic view of the layout, and the installation kit, which can be installed inside certain powered locos and also in rolling stock. Let's take a look at the trackside cam. This tiny little camera can be placed anywhere on your layout. It's great for rail fanning at a crossing or being placed in a yard for switching operations. The camera is battery operated and it's also scalable. You'll notice right now the camera is upside down. Well, that's to get the camera lens height at HO scale. Notice the height of the lens. If you rotate it 90 degrees, it accommodates N scale. And a 180-degree rotation puts the camera lens at O scale height. Here's a look at the Choo Choo Vision cab cam. You can easily place this on top of any loco and set the lens in the cab window to give you an engineer's view of the world. This camera is battery operated, and of course it live streams over the internet using a web browser. The battery typically lasts for about an hour. The neat thing about this camera is you can run a loco with this camera, then easily take the camera off and set it on the next loco and continue recording or streaming video. The cab cam can accommodate N, HO, and larger scales. In the lower right-hand corner, you see an image of an HO engine with a top-mounted cab cam. It's using our 3-inch lens. Up in the top of your frame is an N-scale implementation using an 8-inch lens. The camera itself is mounted inside the boxcar behind the engine, and the long 8-inch lens stretches to the window of the engine. The Choo Choo Vision installation kit allows you to install the system inside powered locomotives, dummies, and rolling stock. Notice the RDC Bud engine in the upper right corner. It has both front and rear cams installed, runs off a DCC track power, and uses a magnetic reed switch to turn the camera on and off. The camera installed in the Santa Fe engine uses our 8-inch lens, All the electronics were placed in the back of the engine, and the camera lens stretches through the internal body up to the front nose. The Choo Choo Vision PanCam accessory allows you to get a panoramic view of your layout. It attaches a cam or trackside camera. Let's take a look at how the Choo Choo Vision camera with the PanCam accessory is used to see if we've cleared the crossing. Here the operator is moving the camera left to right using the web browser. And clubs, museums, and by private layout owners to create videos, take photos, and of course, remotely operate locomotives anywhere in the world. We have customers in Australia, the United States, Canada, the UK, Norway, New Zealand, and so on, who are all wanting to share their layouts with model railroaders around the world. Our cab cams, trackside cams, and of course the pan cam provide an immersive and realistic experience that's never been seen before. You can find additional information about our products, sample videos, pictures, and pricing at www.choochoovision.com. Thank you.
Welcome back. I am so excited because the Plano Train Show is coming, and I made a deal with Tom to acquire a camera there. So, Tom and Pete, how did this need arise?
Well, for me, it was really that I had enjoyed in the room operating sessions here on my layout over a number of years with the up to three two-man crews, and that's kind of developed a couple of groups where we all became friends and enjoyed operating together. And then under COVID, all of a sudden, it's just me, and so really it was just thinking about how can I try and replicate what we were doing, without anyone coming over. And then that's when I started that progression through the phone to the overhead cameras to the Choo Choo Vision cameras. And then, part of the reason why Tom's got such a lot of grey hair is because I started asking him awkward questions about 3 years ago, 3 months ago, about can we do this? Can we make it do that? Can we pan it? Can we have it in the cab? And all these things which my remote crews were getting excited about. So, yeah, in a strange way, it's kind of a silver lining to this dreadful COVID situation. Kind of forced us down this path, but it's turned out to be something quite engaging, and we've been having a lot of fun with it.
Tom, did you see a need somewhere? I kind of know the story, so I would like you to answer it.
Oh, Tom, you're
Tom, you're
Mike.
muted.
I'm part of a club that's out in the middle of nowhere here in Texas, and it's a half-hour drive to get over there. It's in a 5,000 square foot building, so there's room after room of track, and I just kept chasing my train around the layout, and we have this dispatch room with all these TV screens, and I was like, you know what, I should be able to watch my trains sitting here in the dispatch room, and more than that, I should be able to run 2 or 3 trains at one time. So if I had cameras in these trains, I could sit in dispatch and operate them, and that's how at least I seeded the project. And then once I met Pete, a whole bunch of other uh, features and functionalities came about from what he was wanting to do. So that's how it all came together.
So that leads us straight into the next question. Can you run multiple cameras simultaneously on different locomotives?
Yes. So the way the system's designed is each camera has its own unique identifier. And if you know a little bit about network traffic, it's also on its own port. So you can have, multiple cameras running at the same time. So you could have a trackside cam running, a couple of engines running with cameras in them. You can even mount the cameras overhead. So uh, it's the limiting factor externally, if you want to stream over the internet, is the amount of bandwidth that you have. and internally there's not much of a problem. We've ran actually up to about 10 cameras on an internal layout simultaneously.
Oh. Okay, so for the use of these cameras, have you ever considered using these for like rail fanning model railroads?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Pete has a railfan camera. It's a trackside camera that has the pan cam unit on it. And so you basically can just set that, right at a crossing, or you can put it in a yard, and it's battery operated. Just pick it up and move it. And with the pan cam accessory, that gives you the rail fan ability to move your head left or right and see trains coming and going. So Pete, how are you using that in switching ops?
Well, for our crews, we really have there's three positions. So we have the cab cam, which can be inside the cab or multiple cameras mounted on the outside, depending on which locomotive. And then for the remote conductor or brakeman, we have two options. So we have the riding on the car camera, which is using the panning as you saw in the video. I use that same unit actually, which is the equivalent of the trackside panning cam. I put that on a stand, which leaves the lens at O-scale person height, so they can look either way as they're making a joint, or get an idea of what's going on up the row of cars or down a row of cars, depending on where they need to make a cut and things like that. But equally well, you could sit that panning rail fan cam in a good rail fanning spot. But you can also sit it in your tower, or if you want to put it on an overpass to get those all important roof shots that we all find so hard to capture in the real world. So really, your imagination is the only limitation. You can use those cameras anywhere, and because they're self-contained, battery powered, on your Wi-Fi anyway, wherever you put them, that you can see whatever's there in front of you. They're very versatile.
Ever thought of using these on mainline trains?
Well, for my side, we're very focused on last mile. So, unfortunately, in O-scale, you need a lot of space to have a main line. So the answer is I don't even have a main line.
Yeah,
But if I did, I would.
yeah.
But I
And
think we're just focused on that up close, in your face, the last mile. But I know Tom, you've done quite a bit of work on the main line with them.
y- yeah, I'll have to confess, I'm more of a mainline guy, Pete, than than a
I know I'm
switcher.
in a niche. It couldn't be
Uh,
any narrower.
so so my primary use has been on mainline.
How about using them on top of passenger cars?
Certainly. So the camera can easily be put on top of a passenger car. We're all using the little blue putty, the fun tack. So you just put a dot of it on the back side of the camera and stick it to the top of the passenger car, and then affix the lens. Kind of gone one step further than that. um, I've got an RDC Bud car that we tricked out with two cameras, so it has both a front and a rear camera in it, and runs off of DCC track power. So it's super flexible. I mean, you basically put the camera anywhere. And what Pete and I have talked about, and he's reminded me so many times, is he's a niche player. So don't let what Pete and I have intended the camera for or used it for to kind of bound your imagination, because if you got a little spot and you want to view from that spot, pretty much we think the camera can satisfy that need.
So you're saying I could even put this inside a passenger car and then I could have the passenger look out for the giants in the room?
Yes, sir. I mounted a camera inside a box car, opened both doors, and put the pan cam unit inside that box car. So we're calling that the hobo cam. So,
Cool.
so he's And then we talked about the Bud engine. I mean, Pete, you've done some amazing stuff with even putting the camera inside the cab in HO, and having the engineer look, forwards and backwards. So very flexible.
So for those of us who missed the start of this clinic, where can we buy this, or is the code open source, or what parts do we need?
So everything's available on the ChooChooVision.com website. Um, One of the reasons I made the product was there's only a handful of folks that understand how to manage all the technology and get software loaded and find the right lenses and work out power solutions. And what was happening was that it was just a bridge too far for most people. They basically just said, "Hey, I want a camera, give me one." So that's why I actually started to market it. So ChooChooVision.com has track side cams, the cab cams, there's a kit for an install. So if you want to integrate it into a powered loco or a dummy engine, everything's in that kit. There's a power comes right off of the track through a DCC power converter I created. Of course, you can turn it on and off with a magnetic reed switch. And there's a host of different lenses in there, different lengths, and there's standard lenses, there's wide angle lenses, and all kinds of good stuff on the website to get you rolling.
Is there a minimum DCC voltage needed on the track?
I think about I'd have to go back and check the spec on what I put together, but I think it's somewhere around 11 to 12 volts,
Okay.
and it'll go up to about 20 some odd volts.
And then how do you deal with the the normal problem of a dead spot?
Each camera comes with a internal battery, and it functions as a keep alive. So while you're
Okay.
running off of DCC track power, um, that that power unit is not only running the camera, but it's charging your battery. If you hit a dead frog or a dirty spot and you lose track power, the battery takes right over. You don't even miss a step.
And do you know how many amps this used? Do I need to buy a bigger booster maybe?
You don't. The camera is drawing on average about 120 milliamps. It'll peak out around 200 if you got, for if your battery's really low in power and needs a charge. But so 200 milliamps is the max draw. So that's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, it should be less than an engine in HO and maybe half an engine in N scale.
Yeah.
Um, have you put any thought into integrating this into We Throttle, which is the thing we use to run trains from our phones?
Yes. So right now in the engine driver throttle, you can open up a web browser in that application and actually see the video right on your phone. It'll run on a tablet as well. I'm currently working on an upgrade to the software for We Throttle. Just haven't had a ton of need for it yet, but it's something that I'm definitely looking at. It's on the roadmap.
Okay. So does Choo Choo Vision have a supplier in the UK yet or Australia?
So no, it's all based out of here in Texas. I ship anywhere in the world. As a matter of fact, a camera just arrived in Norway a couple of weeks ago. Shipped one to New Zealand. There's several that have gone to the UK. Of course, Canada has there's quite a few in
Several,
Canada. We're looking at Pete there. I think Pete, how many do you have now?
probably more than you have in stock. Several is all I'll say. But the reason is I love them, and I keep using them in more and more places.
So I can pretty much ship anywhere in the world.
Do you have a dimension somewhere on how what the smallest unit would would need inside a boxcar or inside an engine if you decided to carve some space out there?
Uh, let me pull that up real quick and see if I have the dimensions on it.
And while you're doing that, I can tell you that, of course, in O scale, I have a lot more room. But Tom showed me, I think, a modern Dash 8 where he was able to install the camera board and all the power pickup, reed switches, everything that you need, backup battery, and still everything else is still in there, DCC sound, etc. And then the camera is positioned to be able to look out through the engineer's window. So highly doable from what I've seen. And as he said, I'm always telling him, don't listen to me. I'm just a niche guy in O scale. HO is where you need to cater to, and that's where the future lies. And
Correct.
I know that's what he's working on. So
Yeah.
all good.
Don't forget N scale, but we're a little bit more patient.
Well, now he has a solution for that too, which I'm sure he's going to show
Yeah.
you in a minute.
Yeah. So here's the size of the camera. It's pretty teeny tiny. It's about 1 3/4 inches tall. I'd say it's about 3/4 of an inch wide, and
Hmm.
this one's equipped with the larger battery pack, but the normal battery pack is about 3/4 of an inch. So I've got the dimensions out on the website. Um, I did get creative. I shouldn't say this out loud, but in order to fit it in that Dash 8, I actually removed the camera from its housing,
Hmm.
and that made it a little bit smaller. And that's also how what I've been doing for N scale.
Okay,
I take the camera out of the housing and I put it in a box car behind the engine, and then run that 8-inch long lens up to the nose of the cab.
cool, cool. Okay, the big question is, have you spoken to any of the vendors yet to maybe make some room for your electronics inside of the, not vendors, the manufacturers of the engines, so that we could buy a camera equipped locomotive?
I have not, and that's actually an interesting idea. So somebody send me an email, and we can have a conversation on that if you know how to get that started.
Pretty neat. Let me just quickly scan here for some other questions. Uh, dit. So, how about what that website is again?
It's www.choochoovision.com, and that's CHOO vision.com. Um, Pete loves to poke me about the name, and so does my daughter.
Hey, if someone will remember it, then it has served its
It's
purpose,
definitely
right?
memorable. And the
Yeah.
good news is that what you'll find there is a professional product range that is now working extremely well. You know, Tom's been amazing to work with. I've got to tell you, some of my crew would say after an operating session, "If only we could have it do this," and I'd call them and say, "Can you make it do this?" And that, 3 a.m. the next morning, boom, software update. Oh, that's working, fantastic. Not always that quick, to be fair to him. I don't want to ruin your life, Tom. But you've been amazing to work with. I have to say that it's been a really
Well,
interesting and fun journey.
well, I appreciate that, Pete. It's been a blast. I have to tell
Yeah,
you, I've learned so much by doing this. I mean, I'm really a technology guy, and model railroading is like I said, it's my night job. But it's amazing what you can learn from folks when you're developing cameras about how model railroading works. And I never even knew that there was, mainline or the switching operations you were doing, Pete. So it's been super to work with all the different folks. I've got another customer that does model railroad photography. Um,
Hmm.
Asking me all about all kinds of lens options and focal lengths and a whole bunch of photography stuff that I wasn't aware of at the very beginning. So it's been it's like everyone I talk to, I learn new stuff, and if I hear enough of that type of need, we'll roll it right into the product.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to operate on Pete's layout already twice. Now, I'll warn the public that the paperwork is quite a bit that you need to study for this. But where else would you learn what a 3-point set means? Maybe Pete can tell us what that is. And um,
sure. I mean, that's a bit awkward because it's a Canadian phrase, but so it's in the Canadian. Well, me calling to you 3-point means if you're the engineer that you're going to be making sure that you've centered your reverser, your throttle's in idle, and if you have it, your traction motor isolation switch is going to be disengaged. But it's called various things in the US, so it might be called 3-point protection. It might be called set and centered red zone. There's a few different phrases that different railroads use, but up here, just around my locale where my railroad is based, it's 3-point and then confirming back 3-point set. The purpose being that with those three things in place, it's impossible for the power to move. Therefore, it's
mhm.
safe for the guy on the ground to go in and lace up the air or whatever he might need to do. So, yeah, that's one of the phrases that you have to learn because otherwise you can kill me quite accidentally, and we wouldn't want that, would we?
Uh, you know, I,
So,
one of the things that gets me excited about this technology is, as we start to roll it out and more people adopt it. I mean, I'm looking at you, Speed, and you're sitting in the Helix, and I want to run on your layout. I don't know where you live. I don't know if I can drive there on a Tuesday night, but how cool it would be for me to log on, and you give me permission to operate one of your locos, and I can run on your layout, and we can do ops together. And it's just, to me, it's gonna in time expand the railroading community, the reach of our clubs. You no longer have to be, a 25-minute drive time away from, you know,
Correct. Correct.
Plano, Texas. I mean, you now can have members that are halfway around the world. I think, Pete, you've got some guy running from Australia.
Yeah, I've got Australia and UK crew members, and remote conducting is really an interesting challenge. Especially
Hmm.
these people have never seen my layout, never been in the room, so that's why you need some of the paperwork that Speed referred to. But once you learn it, and they do get road knowledge over time, as you saw in the video. We're sort of knocking on 300 hours of this now since
Mhm.
COVID, and there's several regulars who basically know the moves. They've got road knowledge, and they know the landmarks, even though they've never been here, thanks to the cameras. So,
Yeah.
yeah, highly satisfactory, I would say.
I had a museum curator contact me. He purchased a couple cameras, and I asked him. I said, "Well, what are you going to do with the cameras?" He says, "Well, we're going to increase visibility of our museum." And I said, "Well, are you just wanting to record video?" He says, "No, it's a little bit more than that." He says, we're going to go ahead and record video, and we're going to put that out on our website and show folks what the layout's about. But what we're also going to do is open up the trains so folks from anywhere can grab a throttle, and we'll present that to them, and also use the camera and run a loco on our museum layout, and hopefully they'll get excited about it and want to come see us. Uh, so
Well,
the use cases are out there. It's just being creative about it.
there's also a whole generation that we know about that loves these kind of rectangular devices. So maybe that's a way to lure them in to, you know, maybe have the courage to go to a railroad eventually. So,
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe it's a revenue opportunity. If you think of places like Little Canada here, which is the most amazing thing, based, kind of similar to, I guess, Miniature Wonderland in Hamburg. But you can actually have a 3D printed replica of yourself at scale put in your favorite scene. That means something to you in Canada, so everyone knows
Hmm.
that you're there. But why couldn't you buy a ticket to ride on the train or all the way around the layout too, right? I
Hmm.
mean, start it off as a free, but if it gets to the point where it's working well, why not help your revenue by charging people a few dollars to go and have that experience? So if they can't visit, at least they can ride all the way around on the train, or they have vehicles on their
indeed.
roads
Yeah,
too, which the cameras would fit in. So yeah, lots of opportunities, I think.
yeah. And it's kind of a mind shift too. So some folks I've talked to are like, "Well, I've already seen train videos. I've seen that. I can, I've got a little camera and I've recorded things on my layout. Why would I want Choo Choo Vision? What does it do for me?" I said, "Well, it's the difference between you know recording a video and watching it later,
Hmm.
and actually being in the cab live and operating it. I mean, you're there in the cab making it happen." And it's transformative, I think, in the way we think about model railroading. We've all been these birds flying over our layouts and looking down on our locos and our cars and everything else, and it's like we're sort of these avatars now that fit inside our our engines or trackside, and actually we're part of the world now that we built.
Yep.
So it's a whole mind shifts change.
Yeah, see, I see a tiny little problem with these cameras. I'm gonna have to put scenery in on every level of this helix.
Well,
You
it's
know?
funny you should say that, but one of the things I've realized I need now is front drops. We've all heard of backdrops, but
Yes.
because the cameras, depending on which side of the cab you're on, are looking out into the room instead of looking at the backdrop, I basically have to order a bunch of shirts with Southern Ontario scenes printed around the belly as I walk alongside the train that someone else is driving. Or, as you can see up here, actually, my very vestigial front drops, 6 inch
Yep.
high pieces of blue styrofoam that block off the view of my horrible basement, so that you don't see that out of scale stuff in the background when you're driving your train. So, yes, it's driving all kinds of new
Uh,
innovations, I think.
my friend is I'm helping him build a layout here in Fort Worth, and so we put a camera on the layout, and it's still under construction, and w- it just the ballasts look like these huge boulders, and there were trees that just didn't seem right, and buildings that didn't seem right, and I didn't never intended it to help with perfecting scenery. But boy, once you're at scale with this camera,
Oh yeah.
you really get to see it all. And so here we are ripping up ballast and going with a finer grade of ballast, and moving trays around, and there's a bunch of other stuff that we fixed as well. I tell you what was also cool, the track's still in the finishing process, so you could see as the engine with the camera on it was going down the track, you could see all the track imperfections.
Hmm.
Because now before you're just looking at it and you're rubbing your hand over the track and you're like, oh, that feels right to me. Okay, now you run a train over it with this camera on it, and you can actually see the engine jerking when it hits a bad spot. So it's really opened up a whole nother use case that we never even thought about, was perfecting scenery and helping you lay track better. So.
Yep. There's one more technical question. What kind of battery do you use inside the system?
It comes with a little tiny LiPo battery. So that comes with the camera. It's automatically charged by the camera. I wrote a whole bunch of software to protect the battery so it never gets too low on voltage, and it'll protect it. And there's charging routines that I also wrote for the camera software that'll charge it up. So basically, all you have to do is plug it in with the included cable into a USB outlet like you have for your cell phone, and the camera will start charging. And it
Okay.
takes about an hour or so. Of course, if you're running off DCC track power, you don't have to worry about the battery.
Okay, so now that you mentioned the setup thing, is there lots of software things that I need to do? Do I need to create ports through my firewall for people to see the camera? Do you help people with all of that?
Yes. So there's just like we would do in JMRI, if we want to run WE throttle, we open up port like 1280 or 1290 on JMRI. So each camera comes with an assigned port number, and all you have to do is open up that port for the camera as well on your firewall. It takes a minute or two to do that, and you're off and running.
And just don't forget, that's if you want to do remote access. Of course, if you're doing it in the room, then it's just a simple one-time boot up, get it connected to your Wi-Fi, and now you can view it from anywhere within inside your firewall. So
Hmm.
that
Correct.
extra port forwarding step is very straightforward. I've done it with lots of remote users that come in here to obviously access my cameras through the sessions, and but that's only necessary if you're going to use them remotely.
And what we're finding is I'd say about a third of the folks are buying the cameras for remote use, and the other 2/3 are buying it for local use.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Let me just quickly do a scan and see if someone had more questions, and then we will ask people to meet you guys over in the breakout room, which is wearby.com/MRL -sign Aussies, like I say, with 3 S's. So thank you very, very much for the time you guys put aside to spend with us, and I hope the sales will skyrocket.
Thank you, Speed.
So,
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It's been great fun.
so Tom, I will see you next weekend in Plano at the train
Okay.
show.
And then
And
I hope to run your layout a few weeks after that.
please.
Yeah, you're coming back here for some more ups too, Speed. I'm not letting you off the hook.
Oops.
You
So
better
you
study
say
those cases.
you say I need to keep the paperwork?
Yeah, you do. All right,
Thank you,
thanks a lot.
guys.
Cheers.
All right, hit the go button. Hey, Marty. Marty. The camera's still on. It's still rolling. Don't go get a sandwich now. It's still rolling. Marty's gone down to the beach. Marty lives like 30 feet from the beach. Marty is like loaded with coin. You see, when Marty's not on camera, this is what he's doing. He's always doing this. Anyways, the guys at NMRX, NMRAX, you got your Marty Jenkins, you got your Gordy Robinson, who's now the president of the NMRA, you got your Speed Muller, you got your Brad Anderson. If I'm missing somebody, I apologize, but those are the names Marty told me to mention. So anyways, these guys work really hard on these videos and getting them out, and the clinicians work really hard. So if you're enjoying it, apparently, according to Tony Cook, I watched his promos, and apparently what you do is you click on you subscribe, like you're getting a magazine, and then you click on the little bell icon. And then you'll get notifications whenever there's a new NMRAX video available. I should be a lot smoother doing this. If I was Burt Reynolds, I would be like way smoother doing this. It should be something like this. That would be much better. All right. Anyways, that's what you got to do. You got to subscribe. You got to click the little bell icon. You'll get tons more videos. These guys are doing an awesome job, a yeoman's job. And make sure you tell them that you enjoyed my promo videos more than you enjoyed Tony Cook's promo videos. That is key. Did I do it right, Marty? Okay. All right. Thumbs up, Marty. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. The toilet goes backwards. Yeah, I know that. That's cool. Up, Marty. See ya.